Hi, welcome to the BelieveAfrica podcast, where we have conversations that inspire, creating minds that revolutionize. I am your host, Cyril Awere, and for today's episode 5, we're touching on the topic Attitude is Everything. Our guest with us today is Theodore Albright. He is a leadership and business strategist. Theodore is going to share with us his insights on how attitude can help to shape in terms of personal and professional development. Welcome, Theodore. How are you doing today?
Exceedingly well. What a privilege to be here.
Yes, it's really an honor to have you here as well, especially at such a short notice. So really appreciate you making the time. You were contacted last night at 12 a.m.
Indeed, yes.
Yes, to cut a long story short, you're here. It just demonstrates your discipline and commitment to the BelieveAfrica brand.
Yeah.
So, Theodore, we would like for you to just give, for the benefit of our listeners, an introduction of yourself, your background, and what led you to become interested in this area of positive attitude.
All right. So, professionally, I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
Got about 30 years under my belt.
Right.
I'm a corporate lawyer. I practiced in England for a bit and then lived in Guernsey in the Channel Islands.
Right.
Did some of that, and then came to Ghana in 2010.
Okay.
Worked in Opportunity International as head of legal for that particular organization. And my last role was as head of legal and company secretary for Vodafone Ghana.
Oh, okay. You were with Vodafone Ghana.
Yes,
okay.
Indeed.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I stepped down from that role to set up the Family Office Africa,
Right.
which really is a resource to business families, family businesses, high net worth individuals, C-suite executives.
Right.
And we offer services along the lines of strategy, governance, leadership, human capacity management, and we tie it with a bow with corporate law.
Right. That must be a lot of work there.
Yeah, there is a lot.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So what gave you the spark to kind of move into this area of positive attitude?
So,
especially for Ghana, by the way.
For Ghana.
Yeah.
I think I've been on a journey of about 40 years.
Yeah.
And it started in England. And the key word was purpose.
Okay.
Purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And so at one point when I had to write a dissertation for my master's program, I wrote on the quest for meaning in the workplace.
Okay.
And so meaning and purpose has been a critical area for me in terms of interest, I'd say even obsession. And that's led me into so many diverse inquiries.
Yeah.
And essentially, when a man finds meaning or finds purpose, everything else falls into place. Yeah. You know what they say? The two most important dates are the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Yeah, the why, isn't it? It's quite critical.
Why you were born.
Yeah.
Because that gives you impetus and drives you to become. But let me go a little bit further. There are 8.4, perhaps billion people on the planet. Each one has a code, a language written into them. Yeah. And that happens at the time of conception. And that code or language is called DNA. Yeah. And that DNA sets us apart. Each one of us has a completely different DNA. There's never been one like me. There will never be one like me. It means that I have a monopoly. And that monopoly, what you do with monopolies, you need to exploit monopolies. And so if I can show up as my best self, then I'll be a monopoly of one.
Yes.
And I believe, we spoke a little bit before the interview started. I believe each one of us has a purpose and has something to give to society before he or she shifts
Leads
off.
us safe.
Leads us,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so when I am optimized as the best version of me, then I am able to give the greatest value to the rest of the 8.4 billion people on the planet. Now, if 10%, 20%, 100% of us were self-optimized, what a wonderful world we live in. And so it's that utopia that I seek.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up here.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable drive, isn't it? Once you know, as you say, what your purpose is and you latch on that, then every day becomes somewhat enjoyable.
A wonderful adventure.
You just wake up and you're looking forward to the day.
Super.
So that's really an awesome place to be. So let's try and define. So what exactly is a positive attitude? What does that look like for you?
A positive attitude is one that says it can be done. Let me also just embellish this by saying, life can always get worse. And who was it who says, Buddha says life is suffering.
Yes.
And Jordan Peterson says life is a tragedy. And at some point, you will encounter that tragedy. Yeah. And so for as long as you are not suffering, you should be grateful that the suffering hasn't come your way. And when the suffering does come, you should say, it could be worse. It can get worse. And so rather than compare up, as most of us want to do, we should be comparing down to say, yes, I haven't got money in my pocket, but there are 1 billion people in the grave. So once I'm alive, I'm one step above that person in the grave. It can always get better, but it can always get worse. Witness COVID, for example. Now, most of us are thinking, oh, how we yearn for 2017, 2018, even 2019, because we didn't know COVID was round the corner. And when COVID came, we yearned and hankered for those days when we didn't have to wear masks, we didn't have to self-distance, we didn't have to clean our hands every second minute. So just being present and appreciating that life has given us a deal. To be alive is a blessing.
It's a blessing,
in itself. Everything else is a bonus.
It's just speaking to what you were just saying there, Theodore, I think as a society, we are generally quite good with expressing gratitude like that, actually. And probably better in other parts of the world even. Here's the thing, challenges. So in this journey through life, right, we all experience challenges. It's quite normal for us to experience them. So I think you mentioned this before. If you're going through life without any sort of adversity, that means there's something not quite right? So challenges are quite normal. But how do you think we can overcome our challenges by leveraging, a positive mindset? How does that look like, do you think?
So I have an acronym called IDEA, IDEA.
Right.
And that allows me to frame and reframe any information or challenge that I face. The I stands for information. The D stands for definition. The E stands for emotion. And the A stands for action.
Okay.
Now, our issue typically is that the moment you define the situation, scenario, or circumstance, there'll be an emotional response. And that emotional response is almost automatic. Let me take you back. Daniel Kahneman, in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, talks about system 1, system 2 thinking. System 1 thinking is immediate and it's emotional for the most part. And then system 2 thinking is rational, but that is contemplative and often takes a lot of time to come up. And because we are emotional before we are rational, by the time you're 1 as a baby, you're crying, emotion. 2, crying, emotion. 3, it's at that point that your parent is trying to be rational with you and saying, don't do that, do this, stop it, that is naughty. So as human beings, we are wired to be emotional before emotional creatures before rationality kicks in. So if you want to address the issue of system 1 thinking, i.e. emotions rushing to the fore, then you can't address the emotion, you must address the definition. And so you reframe the situation, and that will immediately change the emotional reaction. So let me give you an example. I came into the studio, and I was the first to get here, and people came in, kept trickling in. And the information I got was the traffic this, the traffic that, which is fine. I was a little bit irritated that as the first here. Until one person said to me, I got up early, I was ready to go, and then the Uber didn't turn up as promised. So immediately I had to reframe that scenario. And then once you reframe that scenario, your emotional response is different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So it is the framing and reframing of the information that we have, which allows us to tweak our emotional response.
No, I like that actually. Yeah. I think and emotions is quite important, isn't it? Emotional control, even, right? Or emotional intelligence, as you describe it, because that can definitely be linked to our attitude, isn't it? And whether we can channel it into a positive one. So, so you're saying there that the emotional element is also for us to be conscious about where we are at emotionally, so that we can adjust ourselves, based on the information that we're receiving, is equally important, and that can help us to maintain that positive attitude.
So let me give you some examples. So if it's raining in Accra, typically it means some places will flood. But it means that I don't have to buy water, because where I am, I have to buy water. So that's a reframing. It means that the atmosphere is cooler, so I don't need to use the air conditioner. I can open the windows. It means that the ground is more fertile, so the grass is going to be greener. Do you see? So that one thing that perhaps is a pain for Mr. X can be a gain for Mr. Y. And so we ought to be intentional about the definitions that we put and place on things. Somebody will say Ghana hard, but somebody will say that gives opportunity.
Right? That's how I see it all the time.
In the midst of the chaos, there is opportunity. So the reframing is really important for us to maintain a positive mental attitude and mindset.
Excellent. No, I really like that. So how can what is the link between a positive attitude and success? How does one leverage a positive attitude, which can then lead to success?
All right. I think it was Henry Ford who said, if you think you can, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. Full stop. Having that positive mindset acts as a driver. We all enjoy what we enjoy. And so if it feels like pain, you run away from it. If it feels like gain, you run towards it. So how do you reframe what is seen as pain to become gain? And ultimately, gain will lead to the desired outcomes, which we call success. So again, the reframing of your mind to say, you have a choice. You can have the pain today or the pain tomorrow. You can have the soft today or the soft tomorrow. Choose your hard, choose your soft. It's a choice. And so the pain of tomorrow needs to be brought to today so that I can have a better tomorrow. And you can have a conversation with your future self. Future self wants to be a superstar. present self wants to sleep. Future self, future self says to present self, Master, if you want to be a superstar, then this is what you must do. And can you see all the gains that you're going to have from being the superstar? So that conversation of pain and gain, hard and soft, choosing your hard today or choosing your soft tomorrow is what leads us to the desired outcomes, which I'll call success. So whatever your success is, it must be a desired outcome. And so your journey to that desired outcome will be full of pain and gain, hard or soft. Choose your hard, choose your soft, choose your gain, choose your pain.
Yeah, similar to I think I may have mentioned this on another episode. We have this famous image, which is called a success iceberg, right? And on this image at the top, you see the visible, the accolades and all the positive outcomes, and below the sea level is the difficulties, the challenges, rejections, etc. So just speaking to what you're just saying there, that the journey towards success is going to be paved with all these sort of not so inviting situations, but it's quite normal to go through it in order to get to that successful spot. But let's talk about culture, Theodore, because that's really important, because that's kind of embedded in our society. From a culture perspective, how does that impact us as a society with embracing a positive attitude? Because there are probably some elements of our culture which can aid us to embracing positive attitude, and some perhaps not so much. Do you have a view on that?
I do very much. Culture, I would say, is a critical factor in any success. But what undergirds culture are values. So our values act as the foundation for our culture. And, to quote Peter Drucker, says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so culture is the way we do things around here. And underneath that culture will be the value system. And so I'd like to dig a little bit deeper and look at the value system which provides the culture. But before I do that, let me take you to something that Jordan Peterson said in his seminal thesis. He says, something we don't understand prevents us or protects us from something we don't know. The something we don't understand is the culture. And the something we don't know is the harm or the chaos which gave birth to the culture. And we will do everything to make sure that chaos doesn't come back. And by so doing, we will uphold our culture. That's the opening statement in his book, The Maps of Meaning. Now, I say that the value system undergirds our culture. So let's unpack some of our values.
Let's do that,
typically in Ghana and Africa generally, we tend to be fairly laid back. We tend to be quite magnanimous. We tend to be quite happy-go-lucky, and so on and so forth. And all of those are positive values in context. And you need to place them in a context. It's really important. So culture can act as a barrier to success or an enabler to success. And we must ask the question, what is the desired outcome which we call success? And whether the value system which we have today, which undergirds our culture, is aiding or preventing the success we want. Do we value time? Can we speak truth to power? Are we go-getters? Are we energetic? Are we present in our mindset? Are we emotionally intelligent? Do we take the initiative? Are we driven? Are we hungry? Are we instant noodles, microwave mentality, or do we look to the long term? Do we look at Kim Kardashian and say, I want to be like her? Do we look at Instagram and say, everything is possible in a microsecond? Those are the critical issues we need to unpack. And I hope we can unpack them in our conversation
Absolutely,
today.
yeah. And this goes to the point, and it would be interesting to get your thoughts. So I feel that, just as you describe it there, one of the most important professions that Ghana needs is our psychologists, because it seems to me that our psychologists perhaps would have a bit of knowledge about our culture. I'm not sure. Will culture fall under psychology, or do you think it will fall under sociology, by the way?
It'll be a mix of both, but ultimately, it goes to the mind.
Yeah.
And while I'll say that leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership, I'll also say that leadership rises and falls on mindset.
Yes.
And so the mindset, or the set mind that we bring, is the greatest enabler to success. And so how do you shape the mindset? You start off with your perception and your perspective.
Yeah.
And perception and perspectives are shaped by culture, education, religion, socialization, etc., etc. And that then becomes the database, the data set out of which the mind draws information to take decisions. In fact, that is where our definitions come from.
Yes.
Okay. And so if your definition or mode of definition is wonky, then the outcomes will always be wonky.
Yes.
And so you're right in saying that we do need psychologists and sociologists, etc., etc. But you're hitting on another point, because those areas of professions are not professions of high earning.
Yes, it's because perhaps we don't value them, right?
Because we don't value them. So our value system does not give credence to those areas. We rather watch Shatawale or some other person or a footballer. We value those rather than a doctor or a teacher. And so the money value goes to those areas that we value the most. Why should I be a psychologist when I can be Shatawale?
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, and it's all about driven from our perceptions, as you said.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But do you think that we are clear on what our values are as a people?
I think initially, and for a very long time, we were.
Yeah.
But we're now a global society. And, Copernicus came and said the earth is spherical in shape. And Galileo was able to tell us that the earth is not the center of the universe. But with the internet and social media, the earth is indeed flat.
Yeah.
And therefore, we acquire values from hitherto unknown jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And those alien jurisdictions have now very much become allies. And we draw inspiration, information, and data from those other alien systems. And those have, I would say, infected and influenced our value system, which undergirds our culture.
Right.
And then let's also say this. Let's not be unaware, for instance, that different generations have a different cultural value system. So Gen Z thinks differently to Gen Y, to Gen X, to the baby boomers.
Right.
And so it's not true to say that we have a monolithic culture.
Yeah.
It's quite fluid. Thou shalt not kill. Yeah. Thou shalt not steal. Yeah. Those things influence what we do. But beyond that, I think there's a fluidity of value system that we need to operate in. And of course, all of that's undergirded and guardrailed by the legal system and the nurturing system.
Yeah.
But we have come to a place of fluidity in terms of values.
Yeah. Do you think, Theodore, that our education system in general does have, I see a smile on your face.
Don't start me on that, mate. Don't start me on that, mate.
Because our education system is really quite influential, isn't it?
Yeah.
In molding people to think and behave in a particular way as we wish. Do we have enough representation of how we want our people to conduct themselves in terms of attitude as part of our education system, do you think?
All right. We start off with information.
Yeah.
And get an education. And that information is knowledge.
Yeah.
And it gives us a qualification. And that's where we stop.
Yeah.
That is the what. We don't go beyond that and look at application, which is the how.
Yeah.
And creativity, which gives us a why. So we stop at the what.
Yeah.
And never address the how I'm going to use it and why I need to use it. And so the why is understanding, I beg your pardon. The why is the understanding.
Of course.
The how is the application. And because we stop at the what? It means that I can recite Mary had a little lamb.
Oh, that was the aim at school.
Okay.
We call it apple.
Apple, yeah. But I don't know what a lamb is. I don't know who Mary is. I don't know what little is.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I use little elsewhere. And I don't know why a lamb is little.
Okay.
Okay. So there's no understanding. There's just the knowledge of the what.
Okay.
And so we are functionally, educationally, we are literally irrelevant when we come into the marketplace.
Handicapped, yeah.
Okay. That is one. So that is knowledge. We don't go beyond that to understanding, to application, to creativity, to solve problems and give value.
Right.
That is one. But I will challenge the hypothesis and say, is it only the education system's role to address issues of morality and value?
Yeah.
What about parenting?
Yes.
What about our
communities
and our religious leaders?
Yeah, that's a bigger space,
okay?
Isn't it?
Because our morality is drawn from our faith.
True.
All right? So rationality and logic and the logos will come from our education system, but our morality is often shaped by our belief system.
Yes.
And those are the custodians of our value system.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because our faith system is quite huge, isn't it?
It is indeed.
Certainly in Ghana, you can expect it to be very similar in other African countries.
Yeah.
And we see how influential our faith leaders are, certainly in Ghana. And the role that they can play in shaping society towards all these different topics that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Do you think that that is happening or not? Yes.
Do you want the truth?
I want the truth.
The whole truth?
Because when we have the truth, then we have an opportunity to find ways to address it. So the truth is what will set us free. So yeah, would appreciate the truth from your perspective.
All right. So leadership is about influencing, inspiring, and informing yourself and others to think better, to do better, to be better for positive outcomes and positive impact.
Yeah.
If you look at the outcomes and they're not positive, then you know that the input was not positive.
Yes.
Because every action has an opposite
effect
and equal reaction.
Yes.
Positive in, positive out. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
So when you look at the outcomes and you see that the outcomes are suboptimal, it means that the inputs are suboptimized also.
That's very factual, isn't it?
Very factual.
Very factual.
You don't need to bend over backwards.
Yes.
Just look at the outcomes.
Scientific.
And scientifically, you can deduce. So that's the equation.
Yeah.
And so if the positive outcomes are a nation which has rid itself of corruption, a nation which loves its neighbor as itself, a nation which is booming, a nation which is growing, a nation which is loving, secure, a nation where poverty is being eradicated, if those are the desired outcomes and you don't see them, and if the faith leaders are to help us think better, do better, be better for positive outcomes, then they have failed. They have failed miserably.
Yeah.
Yes. They haven't helped at all. And in one respect, except in one respect, perhaps in the respect of peace.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Peace.
Right.
But other than that, I'd say that the impact that the faith leaders should and could and must have is not being represented on the streets, not represented at the workplace, not represented anywhere at all. If you find the representation, then everybody will come to work on time. Everybody will give 100% every day. When you go to the hospital, the nurse will smile at you. When you go to the supermarket, the assistant will be very helpful. When you go to the ministries, you will get your passport on time. Come on. We are not seeing that. All right. And the faith leaders are the custodian and the guardians of our conscience. All right. And so if our consciences are seared so that we don't care, then it means the faith leaders have failed and failed woefully.
And what can we do as a people? And this is partly, of course, why we have this podcast where we are speaking transparently and honest, about these topics. But what can we do as a people to help to bring this more to the fore? Is it because we need more, congregation members to be having these conversations and perhaps asking themselves, what are we representing what we actually believe in? Are the messages right? What do you think that path can look like to help for more of us to become more aware of how we can fix this?
Okay.
Yeah.
The mind is a place of its own.
Yeah.
You can make a heaven out of hell or a hell out of heaven. Your mind, our mind, my mind, is the interface between myself and the universe.
Yeah.
The sharper my mind, the better I am able to interface and interpret the world around me. We should grow our minds. That's the starting point.
True.
You can't go to church and not read your Bible. You can't go to the mosque and not read your Quran. You are functionally an apostate if you go to church and you don't read your Bible, or you go to the mosque and you don't read your Quran. All right. It is imperative that if faith is going to be an enabler, then we should read the book. We should grow our minds. We have an individual responsibility to present the best versions of ourselves. I started off by saying that each one of us is a monopoly. We have an obligation, a God-given obligation, to step up and be the best versions of ourselves. And so I do not see any drive amongst the vast majority of us to say, how can I present my best self? And that is part of the problem. And presenting your best self starts with growing your mind, finding your mind, sharpening your mind, refining your mind. Yes, that is where it starts. And, it might come as a surprise to you that the clarion call of Jesus the Christ was repent. And when you look in the Hebrew, it says metanoia. Change your mind. Change your set mind. Change your mindset.
Yes, it's a very key part of the message, isn't
That's the message.
But it goes back to, we were talking, Theodore, about culture before. And perhaps, we have this culture where we tend to listen. We tend to take instructions from others, isn't it? Like role models or adults, etc. And where perhaps we don't feel compelled to make decisions for ourselves. So we always have to take instructions from someone else, right? Do you think that could be contributing to that? So instead of us taking the initiative and saying, okay, just as you said, okay, let me just go read this for myself and really understand it for myself, we'd rather listen to someone else telling us what is meant to be. Do you think that could be playing a...
Okay, so I'm told that in the CIA, they have an acronym called RICE.
RICE? R-I-C-E?
Yeah. And those are the key drivers for human behavior. And it starts off with ideology, then ego, then reward, then coercion. Okay? Right. Ideology, emotion or ego, then reward, and then coercion.
Right.
And when you take a strip of anybody's life or every Ghanaian's life, you will see that in some areas of their lives, ideology is working and they are propped. In some, I mean, nobody compels the masses of Ghanaians to go to church on a Sunday. Do they? Nobody. Yeah. There's no compelling. They go as a matter of course. That's ideology.
I don't know. I think some pastors would remind their congregation, I didn't see you at church last Sunday.
Yes. But it's not compulsory.
No, of course not. Yeah.
You're not compelled.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not. So we have been tuned ideologically that on Sunday we go to church. On Friday we go to the mosque. Yes. Okay. So that's ideology working. And then ego, nobody compels us not to go and buy a Mercedes Benz. In our parlance, we say we sleep in the Benz, and in all the other cars, you sit in the car. Or the Benz, your car. And I tell you this, I'm a lawyer, I practiced for 30 years. As soon as the young lawyer gets his first big check, where does he go? He goes to the Mercedes Benz showroom to get himself a Mercedes. That is ego at work.
Is it peer pressure, or you think it's just a personal?
The Mercedes Benz is a signal and a symbol to say, ego, I have arrived.
Yeah.
All right. And then in terms of reward, financial reward, we do work for financial reward.
Yeah.
So, and we react. Right. And then on the streets of Accra, if you see a policeman, you won't cross a red light.
Yes.
That is coercion.
Yes.
Right. So in these four quadrants, you see that we act if it is in our self-interest. And the only reason we are not acting is because we don't think that it is in our self-interest. So our framing should be different.
Yeah.
And once we reframe and say, if I take the initiative, there is a reward. If I take an initiative, there is a payback.
Yeah.
Either an immediate payback or a long-term payback. Okay. Where there's an immediate payback, people act.
Yes.
Where there's immediate pain, people act. It is the consciousness, the perspective that says there is also payback in this, which is missing. So, yes, you and I are sharing this conversation, hoping that our listeners will recognize that their perception and the perspective needs to shift for them to have the payback they desire.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Let's talk, for the benefit of our listeners. How does we talk about positive, attitude. How does a young African make themselves a person of value? Because I think this is probably a very, very important question, isn't it? For young Africans. I mean, looking for work and trying to be where the opportunities are, etc. And I'm sure that there are ways where young Africans can find opportunities coming to them, which is a much, much preferred option rather than them going looking out in the hope of finding something. How does that look like, do you think?
The word is excellence or world class. to be part of the 1% in everything that you do.
Okay.
And so the drive should be, at what one thing can I be world class? And what one thing can I be excellent at? And then pursue that with an obsession. There is nobody on this planet Earth who has succeeded as a mega star who is not obsessed.
Yes, obsession is important, isn't
obsession is important. So don't present mediocrity.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Mediocrity does not cut it. If you are mediocre, it means the field within which you play, you have many players and you can very easily be superseded. And you will not have that sustainable competitive advantage that you need to earn economic profit. So the drive for every African is to be excellent or world-class or global superstar in my one area of endeavor.
I like that.
Okay? Yeah. It means you must, with every sinew, with every muscle, pursue to be, again, we're going back to being the best version of yourself. Like I said, there's only one you, and therefore you can be a monopoly. Okay? Yeah. And if you are a monopoly, you earn monopolistic profit. Okay? Yeah. All monopolies earn monopolistic profit. Yes. And so the value comes with being a unique selling person, unique selling point, being an excellent global, not local type talent.
Yeah, looking beyond Ghana even.
Looking beyond Ghana. Yeah. You know, you and I sit here and we're not speaking in our local dialect. Yeah. We're speaking in a global language because that has greater reach. I'm an Ashanti, I speak Twi. Give or take 33 million people understand it. That's it. You and I speak in English. Yeah. That is a global language which 2, 3, 4, 5 billion people understand. So position yourself for global, not local. And global, the competition is tough. It means you must put your best foot forward. Yeah. For goodness sake, don't bring me mediocrity. Come with excellence. Yeah. Excellence. That is the attitude and the mindset which allows you to be a person of value. You will sit and people will run to you.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the word excellence, which is definitely spot on. You know, I think that Ghanaian organizations should be able to operate beyond Ghana even. Yeah. African organizations even. We actually need some international brands. This is my view. Yeah. And it should be possible for us to start to think broadly and recognize, I think, for people like you and I who have had the opportunity to travel internationally, and we have seen how businesses are being run internationally, so we have that broader perspective. But there's no reason why even local Ghanaians cannot explore that. But
let me just chip in something for you. You know, when a Ghanaian sits on a plane, BA, Virgin, wherever, and gets to Heathrow, it takes what, 6 hours, give or take, to get to Heathrow? Immediately they're transformed.
Yes. They change.
They change. How is it that in 6 hours on a flight, a Ghanaian can change? Yeah. It means
it's possible.
It's possible. It is really possible.
Absolutely, yeah. And I liken it to the experience that I had. Yeah. So like you, I came to Ghana in 2010. I was working with Architect Lucent. Yeah. And I was working with a bunch of Ghanaian colleagues, really amazing team. And they had a completely different work ethic. Yes, very, very, because they were trained and coached accordingly. And I could see the difference with authentic Ghanaian organizations. Yeah. The difference was remarkable. Yeah. But that gave me hope, which is why I thought, okay, do this podcast in the future. Yeah. Because I could see that it's possible to change, right? As you describe it. But let's talk about, you talk about excellence. I also think character is quite important too, isn't it? Integrity is a big one for me. Yeah. Perhaps if you are someone who embodies honesty, so it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a gardener or someone who washes cars, if you have shown integrity with the work that you do, you could find work coming to you. as opposed to you going looking for work. What do you think about that?
The big book says, show me a man who is diligent, or a woman who is diligent in what they do, and they'll serve before princes and kings.
Right.
I mean, integrity is critical.
Yeah.
Giving of your best is critical. Not doing it, and I'm going to use a colloquial word, biarali, is critical. Anyhowly is critical.
Yes.
And so if you're employed for 6 hours, work the 6 hours and give your best of the 6 hours. That's the starting point.
Yes.
Do the best you can with the best you have.
Yeah.
That is all. And, and let the thou shalt nots apply. And beyond that, if you could only say, if this were my business, this is how I do it.
Yeah.
Or love your neighbor as yourself, even as you're doing it. And I think that would be enough.
That would be enough.
As a start.
Yeah.
So that if I can then trust you with a little, then I'll be able to trust you with much.
Absolutely.
Says the big book. It says, I gave you 5, you double it, 100%.
Yeah.
Go and do. And the person who got 1 went and hid it. And was called wicked.
Yes.
70% of Ghanaians at least call themselves Christians. So they understand what I am saying today. Yeah. You don't take somebody's time for which he or she pays you for granted. I don't expect you to come into an office and sit there and read the newspaper. Goodness me.
Yes.
I mean, that is thieving.
But it's also systemic. Do you agree? I mean, we don't have systems that recognize performance, really, do we? I mean, do we have salaries that have performance KPIs as part of salary packages in Ghana, for instance? I'm not aware.
In large measure, I'll say no.
Yeah.
I mean, in some corporates, yes, but the government is the biggest employer in Ghana.
Right.
And so I would say that I haven't seen evidence of that.
Right.
I don't want to be categorical.
Sure.
So I haven't seen evidence that you have key performance indicators linked to salaries.
Yeah.
It's just plug and play. Once bum on seat, I'm sitting there. At the end of the month, I get paid.
Right.
Whether I deliver or don't deliver, it's not an issue. I mean, again, let's look at the outcomes. All right? If you're a ministry and your outcome is to give X performance, we should see it on the street. I'm not going to mention any ministries, but we should see it on the street.
Yeah.
The road system should work. The hospitals should work. The telephony should work. Everything electricity should work. End of chat. So if it's not working, then clearly
it's evidence that
the critical issues not being addressed.
Absolutely, yeah. So in summary, for young Africans to be successful, they need to embrace this positive attitude, as we say, but to look at being a person of value, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the key words there is the excellence,
champion excellence,
and then of course a strong character.
Yeah.
And then opportunities will come to them. Which
will come to them like magic.
Yes.
And they'll be overwhelmed. If you're diligent, if you pursue excellence, if you have a global rather than a local mindset, then nothing,
yes,
with a little bit of luck, nothing will evade you. And I'll say this, that how is it that when somebody plays football and do it very well, they're taken from you and they go and play for Manchester United or Chelsea? It means they're playing at a global level.
Yes.
And so talent is mobile, finance is also mobile. So long as A, you pursue excellence, global mindset, B, you create a little bit of awareness and networking around you, then with a tailwind, you will be scooped.
Yeah.
And and hey, the rest will be history.
Yeah. So you don't actually need money. I think this is the other false thinking, isn't it? A lot of us thinking that you need money in order to become successful, but you can just choose to embody the right character traits, and that's how you can change the narrative, right?
I think understanding and application and creativity will always beat money.
Yeah.
Always beat money. Let me give you three people. Steve Jobs, 0 to hero.
Yeah.
Bill Gates, 0 to hero. Zuckerberg, 0 to hero.
Yeah.
They created ex nihilo, out of nothing. So please, it's not the money. It's the idea coupled with the understanding, coupled with the application, coupled with the ability to offer a solution, find the pain, resolve the pain, and that will be your gain.
Exactly. Can we think of some individuals in Ghana who fit that, who have gone through from nothing to something? Can you think of any that fit that? You mentioned Steve Jobs, etc. But it'd be nice for us to think about something a bit closer to
local on the continent.
Yeah, or even on the continent.
Yeah. Well, we have the richest man on the continent,
Dangote.
Yes. We have the man who led the UN.
Yes.
We have the Nelson who got the Nobel Prize. We have the Tutu who was a rabble rouser. We have
Kwame Nkrumah.
The Nkrumah.
Yes.
But let me give you an African who at one time was the richest man in the world.
Masa Musa.
No, the present one.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Who's that?
Yes. You're waiting. Space X.
I am.
X. Space X.
Really?
Yeah. South Africa.
Yes.
Elon Musk.
True. Yeah. He was based in South Africa when it all started.
Okay. So are we saying that perhaps the location is wrong?
Yeah. I like that actually. Yeah, because he came from humble beginnings in South Africa.
Yes. So it is possible.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Theodore, it's been an excellent conversation, and hopefully our listeners have got some nuggets of wisdom from Theodore's insights there. And we'd love to see you again, Theodore, maybe some other time.
The privilege has been mine.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. And I can't wait for the next time.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you very much for listening in. Keep on for the next episode. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to you joining us for the next episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channels, along with our social media platforms, for any new offerings and engagements with you as listeners. We look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you.